this week.
That's why you're in a crisis. This is the thing. Why it's kind of going blue in the face trying to get this through to people. It's the dynamics of private debt that really have determined both the boom beforehand and the crunch we're in now. And the reason
while debt can be useful and free up more spending in the economy, we've reached a point where businesses and individual Americans can no longer afford to go deeper into debt. And a major reason why the economy continues to stagnate after the collapse is because Americans are paying down their debt rather than spending money in the economy. And the more Americans continue to pay down their debt instead of spending, the worse the economy will get. When this happens, Keene told me, you plunge off the cliff. Even government stimulus can't help at this point. Whether it was Bush's stimulus at the end of 2008 that gave everyone a couple $100, or Obama's stimulus in 2009, any extra money Americans get from the government is diverted away from the economy and put instead toward paying down their huge individual debts. And that has no stimulative effect on the economy at all. It just makes more money for banksters. If private debt was 50% of GDP, like in the 1950s, then Americans could afford to both buy things and pay down their own debt. And ditto for businesses. But at 250% of GDP, that private sector debt strangles the economy and sets the stage for a looming economic collapse. So, what's to be done? Well, here's a solution. We should wipe the worst and most destructive of the private sector debt, the debt that prevents people from spending. We should wipe it off the books. Keene, the economist from Australia, calls for a debt jubilee here in America.
I think the only way out of this is to abolish the debt. And you can't do it in a way that damages savers, the innocent bystanders in effect. Okay, so I took what I call a modern debt jubilee, to use that fiat money capacity of the government to pay off a large amount of the private debt, but to benefit savers at the same time.
So basically, that means using the government to simply pay off much of the individual debt across America, from mortgages to student loans to credit cards. This is also the approach Occupy Wall Street is taking with its Strike Debt campaign, though that organization is also relying on private donations to help buy people's overdue debt at a cheap price and then just completely wipe it out. A debt jubilee is not a radical idea. In fact, it's promoted in the Bible, the book of Leviticus, which calls for a debt jubilee every 49 years. As Leviticus 25:10 reads, this 50th year is sacred. It is a time of freedom and of celebration, when everyone will receive back their original property and slaves will return home to their families. Debt cancellation is supported in the Quran, too, and it was used in ancient Athens and many Native American societies. Wiping out private debt would unleash enormous spending in our economy in ways we haven't seen since the boom years of the 1950s and the 1960s. The only reason it's not seriously being considered by our lawmakers today is because a debt jubilee would cut into the profits of the banksters who thrive, in fact, prey on an indebted nation. But in the not-too-distant future, as our economy continues to collapse under the weight of tens of trillions of dollars in private sector debt, our nation will be faced with an ultimate choice: strike debt or watch our economy completely collapse in a way that will make 1929 look like a picnic. Let's make the right choice now.